Hello and welcome to the Dead Air Dudes. I'm Izzy.
I'm Raka. Hello, deader dudes out there.
Hello, Dead Air Dudes Nation. We're back again with part 6 of the
Part
Bad JuJu
6.
series, in which we're going to discuss the lost continent or lost continents of
Atlantis and Mu.
yes, not to be confused with moo from the cows, but yes. So there's a lot that has been discussed about, these continents, especially Atlantis. It's a lost continent, yada yada, all kinds of stuff. So we hope to shed some light, whether or not it's true or not, and our thoughts and whatever we think. So Rock, can take it away.
All right, so as many of you already have heard, at least, Atlantis, whether it's referred to as a mystical place or real place, historically real place, or just word of mouth folklore, it's supposedly an island, a continent. It's very vague. It's a land first described in Plato's works of Timaeus and Critias as a civilization extremely advanced,
Yep.
where there is advanced medicine, um, uh, cosmology, religion, technology, everything you could possibly think of. And I always hate using this term, but the race or the people, the indigenous people of Atlantis, let's leave it at that,
Right.
are of a superior intellect, and they've attained a certain higher level of existence, that he was awed and completely dumbfounded in hearing the tales of their achievements and their, I guess, superior level of being.
Right.
He had wrote these civilizations in his works, and he wrote them in there, and he referred to them as more of a utopian society,
Makes
where you would think one society, any society, would like to attain to become. He had mentioned in centuries past, so he doesn't mention them in present tense. So there's trade, and there's people that every now and then frequent back and forth, but by and large, they're a very closed off society. But by the mere mentioning of that kind of place, it brings one to, that kind of awe. Oh, it's Atlantis.
Now,
Oh,
where was
kind of,
this society, like, exactly, in correlation to the rest of the world, or other countries or whatever? I know that they've mentioned that it's somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but
well, he dated the events of what happened in Atlantis, or Atlantis' existence, 9,000 years before his time.
which is
This is going quite a considerable amount of time back in time from his time. BC, so this is before Christ. So, 10,000 years. This is a whole eons and eons of time before that. And it's been described as the location being beyond the Pillars of Hercules. So you're talking about past the Mediterranean, beyond the Straits of Gibraltar, somewhere out there in what we call the Atlantic Ocean.
right.
To Plato's reference, and in his time, there is no quote unquote New World. There is no Americas. So that's the land beyond, and I guess many people don't travel past the Pillars of Hercules.
No.
And so no one ventures to go out there. But his mention of this prehistoric lost civilization is a place where there's philosophy, classics, an achievement level of civilization uncompared to anything in his contemporary time. A lot of people then began to investigate whether it's real or not, and so they tried to, I guess, corroborate with other civilizations of the time. There would be Egyptian civilizations, There would be some, they're Greek, this is pre-Rome. So maybe Phoenicians, and they would. It's hard to validate because word of mouth spread everywhere. It became almost common knowledge. Oh, this is Atlantis. This is Atlantis. Yeah, it's over there. Yeah, no one has come from there. Nobody has.
Yeah,
There's no evidentiary fact.
to the point where they said that the other, I mean, people joked and kidded around that the next one of the world was Atlantis or the missing continent, and it's like, what are we basing this on upon all this, quote unquote rhetoric.
Yes, in Plato's books, there are dialogues that claim to be they're quoted from this person Solon, who visited Egypt between 590 580 BC,
Okay.
and he stated in Egyptian records the existence of an Atlantis. And so Plato wrote his books in 360 BC. This is now predating that. This is in like nearly 600 BC, and he stated in his records that starting from a distant point in the Atlantic Ocean, this society attacked Europe and Asia with superior force. They navigated through the oceans with relative ease. There lay an island which is larger than Libya and Asia together. So Asia in this context is probably Turkey. So an island and it was possible for travelers at the time to cross from it to other islands, and from islands to a whole of the continent, over against them, which encompasses this ocean. So this ocean goes around it. So many people depict a central main circular island and then a circumference of smaller chain islands around it. And that's where you see this very typical circle with that outer ring, with another outer ring, with water channels in between. And that's from this depiction, that's how people have imagined how it would look like. So again, for all you guys out there, by and large, this is a good story. We have had no significant findings. There have been recovered treasures, but all treasures from the Mediterranean and even past the Straits, even past Spain, even into the mouth of the Atlantic Ocean, by and large, has not yielded anything that cannot be attributed to a known civilization.
Right. Now, Edgar Casey, the clairvoyant Edgar Casey, which we spoke of on another episode, and we will have an extensive episode upon him coming very soon, spoke frequently about Atlantis during his life readings and claimed that many of his subjects were in reincarnations of people who had lived there. By tapping into their collective consciousness, I apologize if I mispronounce this, the Akashic records, a term borrowed from theosophy, he declared that he was able to give detailed descriptions of the lost continent. Again, whether it's true or not, we don't know, because
I think at this point it bears a little bit of a side reference to just going to Edgar Casey just a little bit.
Right.
He is probably the most famous clairvoyant of the turn of the century, the 20th century. For all you guys who may not know him, or even skeptics, fringe skeptics, he's brought up as a Protestant pastor in a very strict Protestant family. He, by and large, had no issues with his own faith in his church, and he was a pastor himself. So he lived that Christian lifestyle, values, and believed in the Bible, so on and so forth. For him to get into his quote-unquote trances, where he would be hypnotized or fall into a trance so that he can astral project. he had visions, and he had all these other sightings, and like you just mentioned, this connection with Atlantis
Yep.
and reincarnation, which would be a total divergence from his religious beliefs. And somebody who's really, 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 really entrenched into his religion, why would you divert? Why would you go all the way out left to a religion, to a concept that is totally not your religion? You know, he would risk a lot. But this is what was recorded in his episodes. So for him to mention that, and this is somebody who's been more than anyone I can imagine, I've read and I've heard, has been validated to be a legit clairvoyant.
Actually, one of the few guys who has gotten a bunch of shit right, to be honest with you. And it's kind of, so if he says something, you know what?
Odds are it's right on.
Lily.
So now, is it so important? Is it so important to find the actual physical evidence that Atlantis, or that alone with historical folklore, which may be rooted in truth? Was there a civilization at the moment? Let's just put aside where it actually was, that was so advanced, and then something cataclysmic happened.
Let me just interject one point, or actually 2 points, from Edgar Casey. He did claim it would rise again in the 60s, which has sparked a lot of popularity about the myth in that decade. But not so much that, so fine. Obviously, that didn't happen. But the more important one, which this can lead into other things, which I believe to be true, that he declared that there was a hall of records, quote unquote, beneath the Egyptian Sphinx.
Yes.
Which holds the historical text of Atlantis. Now, we all know that we can't view that or those historical texts.
There have been many attempts.
Government has said, no, sir. No, sir.
There have been some advances in sonar and deep sonar technology that can kind of break through the topographical barriers that we have, geological changes in the last 3,000-4,000 years, especially around the Sphinx area. And it has been crazy enough, again, Casey, you bastard, it has been way after his death. Whether it's true or not, there have been some evidence that have come up that in the hieroglyphics themselves, in the pyramids and around the area, mentions over and over again about this supposed historical library cache.
Exactly.
So he was dead right about something nobody else discovered yet until years later. How the hell did he know that? Freaks you out. But more and more, we can't find it, but there's fingers pointing to the same thing he has said, that there is some vault. Maybe it's been robbed or looted through the years. Who knows? Maybe weather and whatever got to it. But there is mention also in that they have found that there is some kind of hall of records around the area. And so new technology is being implemented to go find these things, because if there is such a treasure trove of information recordings, what else does it hold?
Yeah, but has it not been explained that there is something going on, and they have halted people from going deeper into those I'm saying catacombs because I'm not sure what they're called, deeper into the pyramids to find those supposed treasures or supposed whatever is out.
Well, there's been a rumor, and again, they're rumors, so who knows what is corroborated, that maybe in the 50s, 60s, researchers have stumbled upon a cache of hidden text, and since then, nobody can find it. Just like one day we will venture into one day we will venture into the Smithsonian, and this is going to be later in our JuJu series. There's a Smithsonian researcher who went into he went into the Grand Canyons, and he found a vault, a cave transformed into a treasure cache that held mink vases, Sphinx and Egyptian material, Mayan, gold, on and on. Basically, riches around the world in one secret, very hard to get to location in the Grand Canyon. Sent a telegraph letter to Smithsonian. They said, hold it, whatever. Next day, military forces came, shut it all down. Never heard from it since. Anytime anybody wants to go there, it's blacked out area. There's
What a coincidence.
signs everywhere that says you cannot enter, hazardous to your life, blah, blah, blah. But that story was in the paper in the early 1800s,
Yeah.
and it's since been removed.
I mean,
so maybe there has been some identification. Maybe there has been a lot of things that brought to light that threaten a lot of people's history, threaten a lot of people's way of life, threaten modern day existence and understanding, and they don't want us to stir the pot. Maybe they found that.
all right. So bottom line, is there an Atlantis? And if so,
Well, again, a lot of references past the straits out into the Atlantic, right? So we have explorers from the New World. Francisco de Lopez de Gomara has said, okay, what Plato was talking about was the Americans.
yeah,
Made a lot of sense, checks a lot of boxes, right? You're talking about possible Native American technology, and maybe more specifically, Mayan and Incan technology, which has come to light, far exceeded what was happening in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and this part of the world. You know, you have Incans and Mayans who are performing brain surgery, at the same time of Christ.
were they really performing brain surgery, or were they just
You can call it what you want. But there also there has a lot of technology. I mean, was there intercontinental travel before we thought there was intercontinental travel?
That leads us to the other quote unquote lost continent, the continent of Mu.
Which maybe more so, and on a similar vein as Atlantis, is a possible fabrication.
Yeah, and if it is true, Mu is like essentially, not to speak lightly of it, it is the hotbed of civilization in a way, if it's true, because this supposedly predates Greek, Roman, and Egyptian civilizations. Even the this supposedly leads into the Mayans or the Mayan civilization.
Well, yes.
So
there's actually some genetic markers that may corroborate such a. If you think it was hard to traverse Atlantic Ocean in prehistoric times, try traversing the Pacific, which is even larger. But
and deeper.
There have been studies that have excavated some DNA from Native Americans from South America to Central America, all the way down to the tip.
Just the tip.
In Argentina and Bolivia, all the way there. There have been genetic markers that seem very similar to Polynesian and Asian Americans. And these markers some of them predate Christ. I mean, you're talking about 5,000-6,000 years back.
Oh, I have so much information on Mu, and so not to make it sound funny, but I mean, it predates so much that it's insane.
Well, again, it threatens a lot of accepted, established history, 100%. Which is BS. It's total bullshit that if you have new evidence, why don't you bring it to the forefront, and why do you not question what we've been told? You know, there
100%.
have been they being the established scientists and historians of record, they have established, oh, there's a Bering Strait ice bridge and they crossed over on this time. Well, how do you explain then the DNA of fossils of humans who predate the ice age?
Oh,
And so how do you also now say that DNA in Samoa is very similar to that found in Hawaii, to that found on Easter Island, to that found in Chile?
all right.
And so
That,
it would make it more convenient that such a continent was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. And why not, with tectonic plate movement, we have earthquakes every day. Why couldn't there be this cataclysmic continent swallowed up by the ocean? And then
I love the fact you mentioned that, because we will get into that later on how it kind of kind of fell apart. All right, have you heard of Augustus Le Plongeon?
yes, so he introduced the term Mu, and he first said he termed it as an alternative name for Atlantis.
Now, for
Yes.
all you guys who do not know, so we're not just springing names on you. He was a British American archaeologist and photographer who studied the pre-Columbian ruins of America, particularly those of the Maya civilization and the northern Yucatan Peninsula. While his writing contained many notions that were not well received by his contemporaries, and were later disproven, okay, Le Plongeon, or Le Plongeon, has left a lasting legacy in his photograph documenting the ancient ruins. He was one of the earliest proponents of Mayanism, or Mayanism. So that being said, a lot of everything for Mu comes from him. So be it good, be it bad, a lot of what we know or what we think we know comes from his studies, his books, which he wrote, I think, 4 books, and his texts, which he translated. So that being said, sorry.
No, keep going. I mean, that's good stuff, and that does lead us to his hypothesis of the existence of Lemuria, or short is Mu, Mu.
Exactly. A lot of people consider that a lot of people say Mu, and a lot of people say Lemuria, or how you said it before, is the same thing. So it all depends who you talk to, who you consider, they're the correct in whatever they're saying and whatever. But according to Augustus Le Plongeon, and again, pardon me if I mangled the name, but that's how I see it. He had translated Popol Vuh, sacred book of the Quiche, from ancient Mayan using Spanish, and that's how everything started. Supposedly there were 2,500 sacred texts that were found. Again, this is what is out there. Then from there, everything of the Mu and everything about the civilization started to build up. Okay. Now all this stuff that I'm gonna tell you guys and whatever is all based off of
Translations.
Translations of what he did, and whatever. So just interject anything when you get a chance, Rocker. So I'm gonna be reading a bunch of stuff, so I apologize. So all right, basically he basically found out that it existed somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean, supposedly. Mu, all right? This civilization is older than Greece and Egyptian, and Egypt, for that matter.
Wait, Atlantic or Pacific?
And in the Atlantic, he said originally.
Oh.
Now later on, it gets it gets debunked that he's in the Pacific, or there's a lot of conflicting reports, so, but it's older than Greece and Egypt, and it speaks about an older continent, and the continent is supposedly bigger than South America. So,
Yeah, it's pretty
yeah.
big.
So it's 5,000 miles east to west, and over 3,000 miles north to south. Okay? It's flat with massive plains, vast rivers, rolling hills, large bays, and estuaries. All right? So sounds like a utopia, sounds like, pretty much, You got a whole shebang bang. So you tell me that this whole continent, just from one day to the next, just kind of blew up and sank. Yeah, and this is what this dude is saying, that this is what happened, So, I don't know.
The only thing with that, both with Atlantis and with Mu,
right.
is that such a cataclysmic geological event must have left evidence around the planet.
Exactly.
So there had to be a timestamp that must have been found throughout the planet or around the surrounding areas adjacent to said existence of the continents. That's the whole in all of this. However, they date this demise happening around 1,200 years ago, right?
Yeah, 200 years ago.
And around 1,200 years ago is also this big ice age.
Well, 12,000 years ago.
12,000 years ago was also this huge ice age. Now, if one intertwined with the other because it's causing a greenhouse effect and maybe blocked out the sun, and then you have an eternal winter, and now you have an ice age because of a quote unquote maybe earthquake, supervolcano, geological event. Wait a minute, we now have our smoking gun.
Yeah, but there's so much more to it, I mean, there's geological facts that have said that within the area that they designate this happened, which is the location was the Pacific Ocean.
From the Marianas to the Easter Island and north and south from Hawaii to Mangaia.
Yeah, Mangaia, exactly. So 64 million people were on Mu.
7 major cities and colonies on other continents, colonies being possibly our other human ancestors.
Exactly. So Mu was obliterated within a day, or just over a day. All right. A series of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, it sunk. Yeah. Now, this is according to all, everything you read and whatever.
Translation of these texts, yeah.
2,500 texts that only he could translate. Okay?
Yeah. So. And also this also brought to the forefront by James Churchward.
Yes.
In his series of books. But yes, so yeah, you're talking about a pretty badass event that wiped out the advanced headquarters of civilization, and all of us descendants on him,
people. But the people who survived, somehow, they created the world, civilization, basically. The ones the refugees who survived. Now, all right.
I mean, there's some commonality, like Egypt, Thailand, the Mayans and Incas, they're all separated by oceans, have similar pyramid structures. And there are some similar religious social themes in each of their civilizations, which we would not otherwise think have communicated with each other, which are very eerily similar.
Yeah, but I'll be more apt to believe the fact that you said alien or, someone would say aliens came up and did it. Then someone who survived this and went. I mean, how the hell did you get all the way to Bumble?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
I mean,
there's a lot of holes in it, but then there's a lot of convenient answers they make.
exactly.
Like you have all of Polynesia sharing a very similar language,
Mm-hmm.
sharing a very similar genetic structure. And I'm not just saying Polynesia. This spreads into South America.
But then to make matters worse, the same guy, freaking Lepongian said that, oh no, the Polynesians don't exist. They were like, like the shit people. They're not the descendants of the freaking of Mu. They're just an aside. So then, how can you pick and choose what So if you're explaining everything from Easter Island, which they admit that Easter Island was created by the inhabitants of the Mu, but yet the people aren't. So come on, man. So which one is it? So either is it legit? Was it bullshit? Or I mean, you can't pick and choose what you want to believe. I mean, come on. I mean, even the story of how it blew up or how it fell apart is. He explained that the main mineral was granite, okay, and it was honeycombed in the catacombs under the continent, and it was huge. They created huge shadow chambers that were filled with highly explosive gases. Now, first of all, why would you do that? Well, fine, it was done, and somehow, once those gases were empty, the explosion, it collapsed the whole continent, which in turn, that's what happened. Now, come on.
Yes. There's a lot of evidence and there's a lot of, I mean, take the particular case of Easter Island. The most remote island in the Polynesian chain or in the Pacific or anywhere for that matter in the world. Apparently it's almost impossible to traverse with ancient ships from either side, from Polynesian islands and from South America. But it's been noted that the Moai, which is the large, very famous statue stone, I mean, you talk about tons, hundreds of tons. They share a similarity with Polynesian art in its form, but it's a natural lava flow area. It's an island born from volcanic eruption. So where do you get the sandstone and the rocks to build this thing? And who put them up? And so from legend, there was a road that connected Easter Island to the main continent, and that's where you got it.
So you're saying that Easter Island was connected to Mu, and therefore from Mu,
that was part of some hypothesis that ran deep. I mean, you're talking about big questions in that part of the world that connects 10,000 miles of ocean.
well,
If you didn't have the technology to traverse it with a dinghy, how you get there? You can more easily get from one place to another continent if you had a big mass of land in the middle.
Right.
And again, it's not just a convenient answer. There's some cultural, genetic, artifactual commonalities that's in that whole Ring of Fire area. And if you're to tell me it wasn't a continent that once existed and now doesn't, but you're to tell me thousands and thousands of years ago, oh, it was just pollinated by boats no larger than my house. I take the continent hypothesis over that.
Hello.
You mean they survive without hundreds of days with a sail? With only using the stars to find your way. And where do you get fresh water? You're really lucky with fishing every day, and you don't run into any storms.
You pray to gods.
And you pray to God, and you make it, I don't know, double-digit 1,000 miles away from one end to the other. I'm sorry, where's my bullshit button?
I mean, look, and there's been geological arguments to debunk this. So, look,
Yes, tons of it.
we didn't want to make this episode to debunk or basically bring something to light and then just
No,
either. We're just trying to show you both sides of the argument, So
and at the very least, do your own digging.
exactly.
Pique your own curiosity. That's the main thing. We want to expose certain things to you for food for thought. We're not here to tell you that ancient aliens have come down, rained upon the planet, and planted seeds, which are us, which is all true. But
Well, the Anunnaki didn't exist. Come on.
wait, come on, they do, please. But food for thought, guys. Take it upon yourself now from this point forward. Read what you can. Look at the map. Look at some of the evidence laid upon you now. Take a deeper dive, and maybe you come up with more stuff. Maybe there's stuff to uncover. Maybe you're a future geologist in search of your own thesis. Go down there, find out where's Atlantis, find evidence. And going back to Atlantis, I'm sorry, we just overshadowed the enemy. Islands over the Caribbean. Another possible site where Atlantis could have been, where recently they found somewhere near the Bermuda Triangle area,
No.
underwater, perfectly laid
What a
rows of concrete blocks, which do not appear to be natural formations. They're too perfectly square, too perfectly rectangle. They have perfect edges, but they've been submerged underwater. And so it does now lead into questioning whether that was once an inland road that connected Atlantis to the other side of the world in the Americas. Food for thought. And there we have our Atlantis and Mu Bad Juju episode.
I would love to believe that's true, though. Yeah, that's.
I mean, a lot of food for thought to stir the pot. Everyone, I don't care if you admit it or not, everyone wonders where we came from, where as a human population, where do we get just one person came up with the idea of the wheel. I mean, there's so many questions yet to be answered, and maybe this answers some of them, not all.
Yeah, so with that being said, hope you enjoyed this episode of the Bad Juju Part 6, and, stay tuned for the continuing Bad Juju, and hope you liked it. So, from the Data Dudes, I'm Izzy.
I'm Rocka, and don't forget, people, we will get to the granddaddy of all coming soon, Edgar Casey. But meanwhile, believe, and most of all, save the whales.
Save the whales. Take care, guys.